All right. Welcome, everyone, to the Serious Angler Podcast, where, as always, our main course for you guys will be talking and hopefully teaching more about bass fishing. And, of course, and especially highlighted in this specific episode, that does not come without a distraction or 10 here or there. So whether you're here to learn or to hear some more Bassin banter, you guys are in the right spot. I'm your host, Bailey Eichbrett, and here with me is the Bassin captain, Mr. Andy Full, and Idaho's finest mustache, as you'll hear also multiple times in this episode, Mr. Adam Deacon. Fellas,
Man.
how are we doing today?
Oh man, this one's a fun one. We're doing good. Still trapped in the snowy Arctic tundra that we call Western New York, but clearing is on the horizon and warmer days are ahead. So looking forward to it.
Well, as this episode airs, I will be in Tennessee in 50, 60 degrees, so you can suck it, Andy.
That's fine. That's fine.
Enjoy. Actually, when this airs, I will be in California in 75 and sunny degrees.
He's like, lawyered, got him.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, watch me one up you real fast.
Oh
yeah,
my God.
Man, I'm ready to get fishing. The BAM Pro-Am event starts this upcoming. I start practice Wednesday, Thursday, tournaments Friday, Saturday, Sunday on Don Pedro. And I'm headed out there, super pumped for that. It's been unseasonably warm out there. So I'm excited for that, to see what the fish are doing we're in February. It's still very early. So central part of California. It's not like it's down in Arizona or anything. So it's supposed to be generally cold, and it's not. So super excited to check all that out. But what about you, man? What are you up to these days, Bailey?
Yeah, so I guess for the folks, just a little bit of clarity. There's a lot of travel with the three of us coming the whole month of March. So we are listening to this episode. We actually filmed it almost a week and a half prior. So Deacon's event will already have been run. And actually, there was a good preview of Don Pedro that Deacon and I did on an episode of Ish Monroe a couple episodes back. So you guys can check that out, the Seriously Western segment. But yeah, I mean, so you're going to see us talk through some things. Timelines might not make total sense because literally today, Bill Lowen won the Bassmaster Elite at St. John's River. That's where we're at right now, to give you guys some sort of calendar context. But there's a lot of travel going on, and to make sure we're getting shows out for you guys and not missing shows, we're trying to plan ahead. So there's a little bit of clarity there, because you're like, wait a second, you guys are going to talk about these events, but they've already happened. Why are you talking about them now? So we're going to give a little context to that. But as of right now, current state, I am likely on the water with the Sniper Marine crew in Tennessee, hopefully somewhere smashing them or doing a podcast with the crew in person, which will be pretty fun. So folks have that to look forward to. And yeah, Andy, I think we should just kind of keep the whole ice thing a constant until that changes. We can just be up to, hey, there is no more ice. Like we're back to fishing in the north now.
Yeah, I mean, long range looks like after the Classic, we're going to start having some 50-degree days on the long range forecast. But I mean, March is notorious in these cold weather, like big humidity jet stream systems, that we get a lot of nor'easters. So I'm not going to rule out another big snowstorm or two before we get to that point. So yeah, it's going to be fun.
I was really hoping, like, timeline wise, was go to Texas. I'm basically being in Texas from the beginning of March till March, was it 21st? No, 23rd, I think, is when the Classic ends. And then, like, Deacon, you fly home. I drive home from Texas and then hop on a flight to come back and join you out in Cali. So, like, I was hoping from that flight back to Cali, I fly home on, like, I think April 1st or something like that. That would be open water, so I could go fish and not have to wait around anymore. But it sounds like we might not have that, which is wild, actually, for up here.
It is wild.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I'm probably going to take my boat in the next 2 weeks to get it ready, so that hopefully when we get back from the Classic, there's some open water somewhere.
So you can bring it to Texas. Got it.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'll leave a couple days early.
It would be perfect. Yeah. But we got a exciting episode for the folks today. We got Mr. Mikey Balls and Caleb Bell joining the show. Andy, kind of give a folks a little preview of what the shenanigans look like for today's episode.
Oh, so much juice. Some unexpected naughty talk and just a lot of bass work, and how to catch a lot of bass. So yeah, it's a great time.
I love that. Some unexpected naughty talk. I guess in
Talking
in
about bass fishing here, folks.
in PG terms for the folks, it's kind of like a mesh of it's like a very not so serious episode with a lot of learning, I guess.
Yeah,
It was educational and entertaining. I mean, it was exactly what we were trying to do.
we're
It is
definitely
the
filling
exact
the bucket of
foundation.
ease.
Yes. Yes. It was an interesting show, but yeah, Deacon, you nailed it. I mean, it's the foundation of Serious Angler, which is entertainingly educational. That's our goal here. And you got exactly that with these two knuckleheads. So
It's good.
it's a great one. But Deacon, what's been the buzz around the industry before we get into the show today?
Yeah, folks, the Business from the Bass Boat segment of Buzz Around the Industry is brought to you by Rec Lending, our friends over there. If you are in the market for a boat or just want to check in on where your rate is at, if you're financing a boat and get some different options out there, they're just happy to talk to people and going to steer you in the right direction, whether it's with them or like, hey, you've got a great rate. Keep your stuff going right now. Super great, honest folks over there at Rec Lending. But industry wise, a lot has happened this week in particular. Like you said, little context is different dates here, but we got to see Mr. Bill Lowen win on the Elite Series Florida event.
Awesome.
And what an event that was. Holy cow, guys. What's your take?
Cold. I think they weren't expecting that. Like we were doing our fantasy fishing show and we saw the temperatures and we're like, okay, but it's also that time of year where things can still get freaky in Florida, with the spawn and everything like that. So I don't think we were, and I think Andy was the only one anticipating 73 pounds to win the damn thing. But I mean, Bill Lowen won without a full limit on the last day too, which is crazy.
John Garrett, if he catches the one he breaks off, probably wins with 3 fish, right? So with 18 fish instead of 20, which
because they
probably
had
one
those mega bags. It's because they had those big bags in those couple days.
But I feel like that happens quite a bit in like Florida this time of year, or it could even happen on like a lake like Gunnersville or in Texas, wherever that opportunity is to catch a giant stringer. It seems like one day they have a giant stringer, and then the next day have like 9 pounds or 12 pounds for 3 or 4 fish, and then they crack another big stringer, and it really helps. And it pays off to know how to hopefully get those 1 big stringer, 2 big stringer days in those 4-day events.
Yeah. It was one of those days. I was thinking about it there, like looking at the standings, especially, but also watching for so long and watching the guys. Like I think the three of us can all agree, like whether they smashed them or they had 2 fish each all day long, we enjoy watching live because we get to learn from these guys. We see the wheels turning and see the adjustments.
Absolutely.
It was also a day, I feel like, for the folks when you're struggling out on the water and you can't catch a fish. It was nice to look at days like today, like these are the best in the world, and they're struggling hard to catch a bass. So it was one. Don't feel so bad when you have some struggling days because everybody has them.
Oh yeah, 100%.
It is so true, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, to me, the biggest thing, and we'll talk about this, I'm sure, on fantasy fishing tomorrow night, but I could not believe how close of a tournament that was. I mean, dude, with forward facing and everything else going on, and just tournament fishing in general, there seems to always be a clear winner, like a pretty good blowout, to some degree in every format. And this tournament was ridiculously close. You had no idea who was going to win between like 3 or 4 guys, and 5th and 6th were not far behind that either. So it was ridiculously close, and it's just it was really fun to. I had it on while I was rigging tackle today, and just was in full anticipation of every time someone set the hook on a fish. It was like, this could be the one that makes this person win.
Yeah, I mean they came with the goal of creating a schedule that was diverse for 2025, and so far I think they're 1 for 1 because like if you looked at the top 10, half of them were doing a little bit of scope and deal, half of them were flipping. Bill Owen didn't even use his whatsoever the whole event, and Shane LeHue was using it a decent amount, but some of his biggest fish he was catching, he was either sight fishing or like swimming a jig and stuff along pads. Guys were doing it. Corey Johnston was flipping and swimming a jig through pads. Like guys weren't using
and
it.
then you have Swindle catching them off dock posts with jerk baits.
The one guy who you think would not be using it, someone using it. But it's nice to see him in top 10. Obviously it shows that a guy like him, after such a long career, is still willing to learn and adapt and adjust to the times to be competitive. So it was cool to see Swindle in the top 10, but yeah, it was cool. But we obviously, like you mentioned with the timeline, that means Okeechobee is now this week. It'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Okeechobee, man. Yeah, big deal. Scott Martin's always talking it up, and he had mentioned that it's supposed to be pretty solid. So I'm loving it, man. Bassmaster's back. I just, for whatever reason, it's my preference. I watch more of that. I watch other stuff too, but like I'm zoned into Bassmaster, and it's been a fun when I'm around. Like this weekend, it was fun to watch it all.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, I'm sure there's going to be a lot. We're talking adjustments. There's going to be some adjustments business wise, I think, from the Bassmaster live stream standpoint, because there were some great moments, but there were some pretty rough moments, if we're just being honest with the production. So I think they got some. I'll be interested to see where they go course of the year, and because they're going to probably going to play around with some different moving parts with that production.
Yeah.
Again, I have no idea. I don't have an ear on the inside or not, but I think from a fan, it was good, but there were some pretty rough parts, and I think they're gonna. I mean, to be expected. It's the first event back, but also
And I wouldn't
missing
say
a huge component.
I would say like though the coverage, especially on the couple final days, as far as the actual fishing stuff that I'm there to watch, all this new stuff, the halftime show, all that, that's great and whatever. But I don't care about that. I'm cared about trying to see what these guys are doing and learning how they're catching fish. I thought that was very good, and so that's what I was hopefully impressed with.
Yeah, I'm with you too. I think we'll say like, yeah, I wasn't a huge fan, but what I will appreciate is one, obviously Dave Mercer's always good, but Kyle Jesse, great job I think on live, especially for how much more increased airtime he's gotten. Great job speaking, but I do appreciate them looking at it as if you're somebody that's brand new to the sport, maybe you don't fish as often, but you want to watch like what is this tournament fishing stuff? I want to get a slice of it, a little bit of entertainment, trying to incorporate guys from the WWE. Like it's they have a hard task of trying to appease the new folk, but also the folk like us that like we look at that, we're like, okay, whatever, like move on, like go back to the fishing, like that's what we want to be seeing.
Mhm.
But
True.
I understand that they're trying to improve, and it's just something that I think regardless of what they put out, guys like us are going to watch it. And so it's like I said, I think they're just going to have to find out what works, what doesn't work, and I'm sure they're going to make adjustments from there. But yeah, it's an interesting road. Bassmaster's on, and they had to deal with it a little bit this week for some slapping of the hands, if you will.
Yeah, yeah. Another. I mean, sticking on Bassmaster here, just a classic, right? These are the things that get a lot of views on social media and etc. But in the 1 day event on Rayburn, Jaden Parrish finished, I think fourth, sixth, somewhere in the top 10, I believe. Could be way off on there, but I'm pretty sure that's right. Basically violated something related to information. And this is directly out of an article here. Rule 3 practice and competition concerning solicitation of information because of results of the violation did not impact the results of the competition. Parrish was not disqualified from the event, but he was fined. So, not sure what the fine amount was, what that exactly looked like, but just an interesting way, right, to handle something. I'm sure there's more to that story, and I am the first person to not ever disregard tournament organizations because they have to deal with so much and people and the rules and all of that. And they're going to have to figure out a way to make that decision. It's their judgment call. I mean, every rule book that you read in a tournament situation, the tournament director and the folks in charge have the ability to make the rule at the end of the rule decision on you and what you potentially did or didn't do. So you're signing up for that when you play the game. So not sure exactly what happened there, but super interesting. Not sure your guys' take on that.
It's yeah, I mean, I think we can speculate all we want, but until the story actually comes out of what actually happened, it is speculation, right? So it's um obviously he did something enough to incur the fine, but then as a person reading it, you're like it's still blurry because you're like, okay, if he broke this rule, which I feel like to the angling community about soliciting information, which is a pretty big no-no, I feel like. I mean, there's a whole reason there's been so much drama around the elites last year was because of the whole information deal. So he violates his rule, but he only gets a fine. It doesn't impact the results of competition. I feel like that's one. I feel like if I was a tournament organization, I'd want to expand upon that as a why, because I feel like very vague right now. It's kind of like, okay, we're letting you get away with it this time. We're going to slap you on the hand of the fine. Whereas,
Yeah,
I don't know.
I
We
mean,
need more details. That's all it is.
yeah, more details. I mean, and total speculation here, but right, like the first thought that came to my mind was maybe like someone had texted him something about the lake, and maybe he was like, A, was like, hey man, I'm in the tournament, or B, maybe there was some communication there, but it was like he wasn't even fishing that side of the lake, didn't have any plans of doing any of that. Maybe he had like stayed in one section, and then someone was like, hey, you need to go do this bite over here. And he's like, yeah, man, I'm fishing how I'm fishing and how I caught him well, I guess the practice days. But I don't know. Total speculation. Not sure exactly what happened there.
Yeah. Who knows? We could have gotten like the whole was it Randy Howell on Gville when I had like 40 people on the bank watching him fish that railroad or the bridge or whatever, and some guy like was shouting out who's doing what. Like, can you imagine trying to be an angler in that position? Like, I can't. Also, screw you as a fan that knows that rule too, that goes on and says that stuff. But yeah, I mean that's a tough situation to be in. So who knows? Again, like it just comes down to see what details come out. But it's nice at least to see a tournament organization adhering to the rules, holding anglers to the rule book. It's nice to see. It adds more credibility to this tournament scene that we appreciate and love so much. But
100%.
Yeah.
And last piece of news here is just AFCO has the bass. Wow, it's been a bass bus. The bass bus. Okay, this is 2 boats equipped with Ulrich Marine Service staff, and they're going to help release bass all over dozens of events across the Midwest, supporting 43 events, 12 states, and releasing over 27,000 bass. So we love a conservation movement. AFCO does a bunch of them. Great to see.
Yeah. That was their report for 2024, and it's cool. Like whether it was regional or what size events, the more the merrier in regards to making sure these fish are being released the right way, especially on a staff like that knows how to fish, and it sounds like they have a big effort again for 2025. So we don't work with AFCO or anything like that, but we do appreciate especially like with this year having the real biology segment now, we appreciate all the conservation efforts to make our fisheries better, and obviously all this stuff stems from a fish. So good to see that. And then I think that wraps up our business from the bass boat segment for today's show. And before we get into the bulk of it with Mikey and Caleb, last thing we'll let you guys know is that as always, if you're shopping at Omnia or you're shopping at Hobie Eyewear, we do have discount codes that are always in these show descriptions for you guys to take advantage of. 10% off on all your orders, everything at Omnia Fishing. And then we do have a code for 20% off that's year round at Hobie Eyewear that you guys can take advantage of. 20% off is pretty steep, especially when we're talking about sunglasses that are already pretty affordable. But folks, looking forward to today's show. Like again, our precursor warning, it's entertaining, educational. There's some spicy / if Andy says naughty words, if you will. But either way, there's a lot of juice drops. So let's get into today's show with Mr. Mikey Balls, Caleb Bell.
You should put on your intro as your ass.
Yeah. The angle of the kayak video of you standing up makes it just like looking up.
Where else to put it, dude? Like I can't.
He can't hide what his mama gave him. All right,
can't hide perfection.
Wow! Oh, I love it. Well, if folks couldn't hear already, we're joined by 2 guys that are no stranger to the pod, and two guys that are no stranger to having a good time. Mr. Mikey Balls, Mr. Caleb Bell. First off, got to say, Mikey, congrats on 100K, dude. Way long overdue.
Yeah. It took a long time, 16 years, but it's pretty cool, dude. And I like to think that I kind of did it the way I wanted to do it. So I will take it. I will take that plaque, and we will keep making bids.
Well, like you said offline, the best stuff on the internet never gets views, and that's why it took you so long, because your stuff's some of the best on the internet. So it didn't get as many views as the stupid stuff.
I'd try. Make stuff I like. So I got some cool stuff.
But for real, though, when people talk about the stuff they watch to learn, your name is always brought up. It's you and the Tactical Boys are always brought up. You're a constant. So for real, though,
I learned to punch off of Mikey Ball's video.
Yes, and then we went and did it, didn't we, Caleb?
Yes.
The
Oh,
OG
yeah, it was
days
like
with
2015 or something like that. I watched that video and I was like, I got to try that. We finally had grass back on Chickamauga. And I'm out there, and like my third or fourth flip, I caught a 4-pounder. And I was like, dude, this is the coolest thing ever. And I flipped the rest of the day and I had one more bite.
I think.
But I was still like the happiest kid on the whole lake.
Oh man.
Sounds familiar.
Look at you now, Caleb.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. So, well, like that first fish, I caught at the head of a grass line on the main lake. And instead of flipping the outside edge like we would know to do now, I went to the inside and went to like Froggingville where it was like that deep. And I'm like punching. I'm flipping like 8 inches of water. Like, come on, we can do this. We can do
There's
this.
got to be another one.
Oh,
Oh, that's awesome.
it was awesome.
Well, Caleb, how's the guide scene been, dude?
Man, it's been good. We've been catching some good fish. I've been slow on 10-pounders this year. I've got 3 so far. Lots of 9s, lots of 8s, but
Blame the weather.
need
not
some of
the
those
fishermen.
little freaks to come out and play. We've had a huge shad kill. We were talking about this off camera, and it's been going on since that first cold spell we had. How long's that been now? Like over a month?
Yeah, it's back in
Two
And
weeks.
the shad have been steadily dying. We've got more seagulls than I've seen since like 2016, 2017 on the lake. And it's just really hard for my live bait trips to actually get a fish to eat a shad right now.
Interesting.
But the artificial trips and stuff, everything's good. Like there's a really good bite on Chick and Nickajack and some of these other lakes right now, throwing a rig and a jerk bait and like a small minnow. I've been catching them just kind of flipping around with that new Cast Echo, like that little 2.5 or 2.75?
Yeah.
275.
Little bitty thing, but I'm smashing them on that thing. And then the new little baby like 2.8 spunk shad deal.
Mm.
But
Mhm.
it's so fun. Like I'll have guys that are throwing for big fish out there, and I'm catching like 4 to 6 pounders on 2-pound or 4-pound test, just playing around with that. So it's
You're
fun.
nuts, dude.
That's awesome. That's so
I
much
caught
fun.
almost a 17-pound striper on 2-pound test the other day.
Holy crap!
What?
I remember we get the boat
How
when it
long
was.
does that take to reel in
Oh,
at that point?
dude, I don't even know. So we were sitting there, we were way up Hiawassee, and it's narrow. And my guys were fishing like a big stump over here. And it was just loaded with fish for whatever reason, this one stump at this creek mouth. And they were just catching them one after another. And I'm like catching crappie on this little, like the little 6 cents crappie fly?
Yeah.
It has like 3 feathers on it. It looks ridiculous. I was
Yeah.
like pitching that around because I had it on. And I see this kind of bigger mark swimming. I pitched it right in front of that thing, and she just went, sucked it in. I set the hook, and of course, you know how fast striper are. It just starts running out into the middle of the channel. I'm like, golly. I knew exactly what it was because there's only one thing in the lake that runs that fast. And so it rips all the way across to the other channel buoy on the other side. It rips up to another channel buoy and then across. And by that time, it's tired. It just floats back down to me. I literally never had to pull off a spot lock. I just stayed in the one spot, but it swam upriver. And by the time it wore itself out, it just floated back down. It was just literally floating. I just waited until it got
That's
to the
insane.
boat and I put it in the net.
When
What-
Rudd and I were in Caleb's boat, and Rudd picks us up and goes, "Hey, is this 8-pound test?" He goes, "No." He goes, "I fish with man shit. Here's 4."
Exactly right. It's fun. Dude, if you haven't done that, it is so fun to try to catch big fish on super light line.
I
It's
can
a
only
good
imagine.
time.
What is your take on those crappie fly deals? I know what you're talking about. I got some of those, but I really haven't messed with them much.
So I liked them.
Yeah.
I'm actually out of them now. I got to order some more. But what I like the most about them is like they got a really good hook and they got a 90-degree tie that's set back, so it's perfectly balanced. You could use it as a floating fly
Okay.
or a dropping bait, like if you wanted to use it as a really finessey Damiki type setup. If you're catching smallmouth on really light line deep on rock veins or something. But I love a fly that has that perfect balance to where you can just kill it and it stays like slightly head down or just directly horizontal. So it'd be a crusher on a floating fly. I haven't tried it yet, but it would smash. The new, I got to give a shout out to, like, I'm not the biggest pure fishing guy, but Berkeley with that new little hybrid head, the little fusion head or whatever, the one with the 90-degree type, dude, they smashed it out of the park with that thing. It's a
I haven't
beast.
used this. I haven't used this at all.
What's that called, Bailey? You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it's just the hybrid head. Yeah,
Is that a
it's
hybrid
their
head is what it's called?
it's their new swim bait head. It's just a different line type, more for
Like
kind of
we're
the
all
minnow
obsessed
fishing.
with it down here now. Like that's all we throw, like for a 2.8, and it's a lot of the smaller minnows. Got an awesome hook on it, and
Yeah.
it's balanced like that too. Like you could run it on their smaller ones on a floating fly because it'll sit like that. It's hard to find a head that'll just do that.
Yeah. Yeah, they did a good job with that for sure.
I see it now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
this
actually
is
like
sweet.
that thing. I was pretty stoked about it.
Well, boys, the kind of I'm sure we're gonna go on many a rabbit holes as all of our shows with both of you guys always do. So while in preparation for that, we'll get into the topic of conversation for today, and that's kind of digging into like a full in-depth walkthrough of like bait selection in regards to there's different factors from whether it's action, size profile, color, and then obviously noise. And so we're gonna walk through each of these, but what I really want to talk to you guys about with this, just because I think when it comes to my mind about guys that are very experimental with baits and techniques and their approach to things, you two are one of the first ones that come to mind. So I really was curious to talk to you guys about this. Um, but before we do that, I guess of those, when you look at profile, color selection, noise, in the action of the bait, how would you tier those in your guys' mind of most importance to least important of those categories? And I think Mikey, we'll start with you, man.
What are my three options? Noise.
So you got
Dude, I've
size,
been
size
profile for 2 weeks straight, and like it's been a freaking zoo. So I'm a little all over the place. Noise,
you got
color.
noise, color, action,
Size.
and then like size or profile.
4.
So size.
Size and profile you can loop together if you want.
Well, yeah, the size, action, noise, color. And actually, I'd say action and noise are kind of pretty tight there. Those are kind of interchangeable. But that's probably my order. And especially with the minnow dangling thing, like that's kind of showed us so much. Like size is so important. Like playing around with the size, and then the action. I guess action. God, it's up there, dude. Because you check size, you check action because you get different rolls, different kind of wobbles, you get different tail kicks in that. And then I guess noise, it kind of applies in that context, but not so much. And then color, dude, like I'm one of those guys, I don't care. Like is it light or is it dark? I'm pretty straightforward, and I know I'm wrong sometimes. Like there's always those weird situations where it plays a bigger role. But like if we're talking about generally catching fish, not being like the lake master expert, like crusher, like you're gonna catch fish. You have a light bait and you have a dark bait. You're gonna catch fish on every freaking lake in the United States.
I love it. I love it.
That's me.
Andy's punching the air right now.
Yeah. Bailey,
I know.
Color, like solid versus transparent. Like
That's
I've gotten pretty simple on my shad pattern swim baits and stuff, but I still want to have something that's kind of like a solid color for if the water's got like a little twinge to it or if it's cloudy outside. And I feel like when it's sunny or if the water's really clean, like a slightly transparent shad pattern sometimes works a little better for me.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty simple when it comes to like swim baits and stuff. And then jigs, like y'all know me with jigs. Like I literally run the same jig. Like it's a natural color jig, green pumpkin and a little bit of orange in there. And then I change out my trailer. So I might have like a June bug trailer or black trailer or a summer crawl or something like that. I have like 4 different trailers I use, and that's it. I can catch fish anywhere I go on the same jig. So, but in other categories, I go crazy on color. So, I don't know. But if I had to put together like a hierarchy on what you guys were just talking about lately, if we're talking this time of year, I think size is really huge, and like the action of the bait, I would put size also in like the weight. It's like a lot of guys, they see fish that are in deeper water or mid depth and they want to like get down to that fish really fast with a heavy head. But I find that going as light as you can get away with and where you can still lead that fish and get it in front of it, like you'll get a lot more bites that way because you can, if you have to, you can kill that bait in one spot, and just like basically hover it there and make that fish close the distance, kind of like if you're glide bait fishing. And then once that happens, you can speed it up and get them to react. But sometimes you have to, like, you get these fish that are super inactive on a stump or a piece of standing timber or a floating dock or something like that, buoy. And you know what I'm talking about. It's those ones where the bait get past and it's like they don't even start to move until it's like 7 feet away. And you're like, crap. So having that lighter bait, like you can just work it so slow that sometimes that fish will just crawl and she'll just keep closing until you get her close enough to actually do something. So that makes sense.
That's juice, man.
Either because that's the other thing I think when you're talking about like what did you call it, like action, like a lot of sometimes baits have like self-imparted action, you know, like when you like reel a trap, right, it shakes. When you reel a chatterbait, like with that minnow thing, like we're talking a lot about tension. There's so much of a play with like shaking versus quick reels versus tension to make it like hover, like Caleb's talking about. And like it sounds really lame, but like those little nuanced things can make, at least for what I'm seeing on forward facing, like make a huge difference. Whether it's the fish getting to the bait, or like making the bait do something, like be not too obtrusive. You know what I mean? Like where it's not, because I'm starting to see fish, dude. When I roll like a Sakamana and stuff, they're like, yeah, no, we've done that, dude. We're cool. Like I almost have to like reel it and have something that has a straight tail. Like the minnow has to have like a pintail on it. Like I throw that dual realis pintail shad quite a bit, and it's got a straight tail. And I actually I got a head, that little live rocker head that gives a slight wobble, but it actually causes the tail just to shake when you're reeling it. So you're not like wonka 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 wonka. You're just doing that, and that tail's just slightly shaking, you know. So
that's exactly right.
I want to clip that sound to roll up every time I'm throwing
wonka,
something.
Wonka, wonka. What that bass do when he came up and jumped? He went wonka 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 wonka.
That's the right one. That's when you want
to swing on that 10XD fish that you just long line on Placid.
No, that's
chicken.
Wonka, wonka, wonka.
It sounds like I'm playing like Super Mario Bros. Or something.
The fish goes wonka wonka wonka. 100,000, baby! I got 100,000. Go wonka chicka chicka wonka.
I think getting back on topic, like a lot of this stuff matters more with certain techniques to me. Like, but right now, front of mind, we've already started talking on it, is like the minnow deal. And it's really fast becoming kind of like the A-rig was, right? Like when the A-rig first came out, you couldn't get them, and you could literally make a 5-wire contraption out of coat hangers and put 5 swim baits on it and smash fish anywhere you wanted to. Now it's super nuanced. We have flex rigs, we have light wire, we have different size blades, we have all kinds of small swim baits and stuff that we put on them, blah, blah, blah. And it's already happening. Like that evolution of the technique is happening so fast on strolling, if you want to call it that. I still call it tight lining, dude. Like I'm giving East Tennessee the nod on that. We invented that crap. Yeah. Like people tight lining with the little oversized crappie minnows and catching big smallmouth. That's the original strolling, and you can't tell me otherwise.
Yeah, you taught me how to do that years back. We first fished each other. Caleb was before forward facing the thing, going on bluff walls and doing that. That was.
But we didn't. We just never did. At least not to my knowledge. Nobody ever decided to do it with a bigger bait for whatever reason. Like we knew it smashed.
Yeah, it was always like.
Yeah, it was like 3. Like the biggest stuff I ever saw people use was like 4-inch Gulp minnow, or like the Zoom original fluke, like the 4-inch Zoom original fluke, kind of like the Zoom tiny fluke.
Right.
Like those are original strolling baits that people use tight lining.
It's kind of crazy where Gulp is like disappeared.
A little bit of a sidebar, but I'm curious about. So I'm pretty good with a Kitech, or I was, I guess. So like I can catch them. Like when we used to tight line a Kitech, like blind, like no forward facing. Like, dude, I would outfish whoever was with me. Like I just had like a cadence or whatever. Like when you kill it, and bro, I'm worse with a Kitech now on forward facing than I was without it. And like, have you found that? Maybe not with the minnow stuff, like that aside, but like, have you found that you actually catch less on the Kitech doing the old school, killing it and like tight lining it when you see them, because you're kind of you're following the fish instead of doing
so, dude. I don't know if it's because like you're overthinking it. Like that's the way I think about it. Like a lot of times, if I have a bunch of fish follow and they don't bite, and I'm trying all these cool things that I've had work in the past, I'll literally just watch my bait until a fish falls and just turn it away and just like try to fish normal. And sometimes that's like the deal.
Yeah, I've got a story.
Take it away because otherwise it's like sometimes I feel like I'm overthinking it or I'm trying to overanalyze, which I do anyway. So now I've got more information in front of me. So,
well, that's just being a fisherman. We all overanalyze everything.
Now it's just like we do it more, right? It's like social media. Now we can overanalyze every little thing, and now we have so much information coming in. But I was fishing a Toyota Series on Havasu a couple of years ago, and I ended up having a good finish. But my day one, I had to dig out of a hole because I did not catch them. My co-angler ended up being in third that day and absolutely jacked them on a 275 Kitech, doing exactly that. Like mindless casting and reeling. And I'm sitting there scoping and doing everything I can to get these fish to bite. And he wore me out, not even thinking about it. I was clearly around him. You know what I mean? And so there's something to that.
There is something to it, dude. Because I just feel like my cadence used to be different because you're out in the ether, right? And you're reeling, and it's like, oh, after 5 reels, I kill it.
Visualize
and just freaking pendulum it. And like, dude, there she is, and now I'm like thrown to these fish with the same bait, same weight, same everything. And I should be better at it. And dude, like, I'll kill it when they're behind it. And I'm like, oh, here we go. Nothing will happen. And it's like, it's almost like reacting to the fish inhibits what that technique was actually built upon. I don't know.
Yeah.
I definitely agree that I think that's a mental thing. Yeah. You're trying to be almost more target oriented when you're using the tech versus if you're just blind casting with the bait. I feel like you're way more efficient. Like you're not changing anything up. Like you talked about, there's a fish tailing it, you might kill it. That might have wrecked the whole thing. Or if you kept reeling, I think it's all mental.
Yeah.
But
I can't tell you how many times, because I don't scope a lot when I've got clients in the boat. For myself, I'm scoping for them. And so I'll be looking around. I'll spot fish for them to throw at. Boom, they're throwing at these fish. I like look out into the ether. I don't really see anything, but I throw, right? Because I need to do something. And I can't tell you how many times like I'll look back and there's like fish that I had no idea were even there following my bait. Like they just come off the bottom, they were like tucked into something that I couldn't see. And then boom, we've got a whole nother little school of fish that I didn't even know existed until I actually was fishing, right?
I like the air quotes you put on that.
Yeah.
Fishing.
Yes. Large air quotes.
Yeah. Well, back to that question though, just to cap on before we move forward, I think it's I was not anticipating color being on the bottom tier for your guys' hierarchy on both of you guys. That's interesting.
Yeah.
We don't
I have colors that I like. I feel like some of my colors that I like are outside what other people use, but they're still just back to basics, right? Like when you boil it down, it's still a transparent color, and then it's still like a solid color, and then of course chartreuse, because you got to have chartreuse and red and stuff like that. But like overall, it's pretty simple. But I'm still using stuff like I don't mind and everybody's saying, oh, we're using electric shad. Like I'm going to be the guy that's like, okay, well, let's pull out rainbow shad or whatever this other color is, like just for kicks and giggles. It's got a different back color. It's got a little different color glitter. See what happens.
I get that.
Well, I always carry markers too. Because I go to like Lanier every year. I come to Florida. I go, Gunnersville. Like I shot over to Chick this year, and with like Kitechs and even I'll have Magic Craw everything, right? And then like Kitechs and like Tennessee shad or something like that. Like I like your transparent thing. That's a really good point. But then I got like chartreuse markers and pink markers and crap like that and like blue. And so if I want to get I don't even know if it makes a difference, but if I want to feel creative, like I'm separating my bait, I'll just go to the freaking, color by number kind of deal and just start freaking going to town and tweaking it. But
Bob Rossing all Bob Ross on the baits.
I need a pro like that. That would be gnarly, bro. Have something against your mustache. You'd be like, oh, you got that on your face? Check this out, bro. I will tell you one thing.
It's hard to get a hat over top of that.
I was thinking about big picture stuff though, because I think we're saying it without saying it. And I shot a video on the Chatterbait Mini this morning, and I was actually kind of like talking about that concept because it keeps coming up in the way, and maybe it's a me thing because I kind of like finesse fishing. One of the big players for me, and it has everything to do with this bait selection deal, is this concept of power finesse. And it's once again like you're talking about A rigs going from like straps, grab an umbrella and rip the cover off and freaking put some baits on it to like now we're using the flex, like the leader material and stuff. And like, the chatterbait mini is a great example. Like we're still fishing the chatterbait. We're still power fishing. I'm still throwing it on 15 or 17 pound fluorocarbon, but I'm using this downsized bait. I'm using like minnow style trailers. Same thing with a trap. I throw a trap just as much as I used to, but dude, I'd say 80% of the time I'm throwing a freaking silent trap, like, or maybe a one knock or something slightly different, but I'm throwing a silent trap or I'm throwing like a little quarter ounce or 3/8, just like a downsized little bite sized one. And I think a lot of things are going in that direction. Obviously, with the minnow dangling, you're relating to bait size versus like trying to be super duper finesse. But like a lot of the things that I'm noticing with bait selection they fall under that umbrella of like a power finesse where I'm doing the same thing. I'm trying to get less noise, less vibration, or more subtle like vibration, and just a downsized profile.
Yeah, it's interesting that it seems like it's going that way, or people are going bigger, right? Like you see the glide bait scene kind of exploding, and everything in the middle is kind of like meddling out. Like it's just kind of
Sakamata.
going
Bro,
away.
today I had two 3-inch minnows on dangle lures. I had a Kitech, a 3.3, and then I had a 7-inch Sakamata shad and a crappie glide. Like nothing in between, dude. That was so. It was either
that's very West Coast of
you. Yeah, dude. It was like very 25-pound fluorocarbon, or like, well, I'm in Florida, so like 12-pound, leader. But like if I was in Gunnersville, like 8 or 10, So like either one or the other. It was very manic, dude.
So
crazy.
Well, and this is a little bit of a tangent, but I'm with sound. To me, this is something that I always kind of think about. I really pay attention to it with like a trap, with a jig or things where you can add and take away sound potentially. But what's your take with a jerk bait? I've used silent jerk baits. I've caught fish on them, but I've never been like, this is what I want. I just kind of stay away from them for whatever reason. I'm just more confident in a jerk bait that has some rattle to it. But what's your guys' take?
I have a very strong opinion on this. A very strong opinion. If they made a jerkbait that was silent, that worked right and casted, I would throw that bitch all the time. There is literally no freaking silent jerkbait that like dude, the 110 silent is like okay, but it's like a terrible golf swing you can't get rid of, dude. That thing, like you try to cast that thing, it is all over the place, and especially trying to fish it on forward facing, dude. It's no bueno, dude. Like so, if they made it, I would throw the piss out of it. And if it didn't ride out, the other thing I find with the silent is like all those 110s are gonna roll at some point. I've been power fishing a jerkbait a lot where I'll like 5 reels and kill it. 5 reels and kill it. And like I'm not even jerking it anymore. Well, I am at home, but like when I'm fishing it, dude, like I'll do 5 reels and kill, 5 reels and kill. And the silence, I don't know if it's the lack of weight transfer, but it's not. It won't ride true.
No, I've seen the same thing, but I've crushed them on a silent jerkbait, especially when it's like a fall schooling deal where everyone's pounding on these fish. Like they're super easy to find. Like if you have eyeballs, you can see fish blowing up on the top, right? And I've seen it where the jerkbait bite's like stellar, and then it goes away, and you go to the silent, and you just crush. You can crush on that, and it's really good. I've really gone to that a lot fishing because it doesn't run as deep. I don't know if you've noticed that. It does not run very deep, so it's awesome if you're fishing like shell bed flats and stuff like that. Like where you would traditionally fish a trap, you'll throw that little thing up there in like 4 foot or 3 foot, and it's like when you hit, you just pop up and get it back up again. But it gives you a bait when you've got fish in the area that you know they're there. You've probably caught a few on a trap already, and then they stop biting. You can get those like 5 extra bites a lot of times. And sometimes the big bite out of those places on that thing. So it has a place for me, but like you said, it does not cast very well. So to me, it's really great if I have a general area that I'm throwing at and not necessarily running it on forward facing, or if they're just a bunch of schooling fish that are blitzing on bait, I can get like some extra bites and stuff out of them.
Because it's basically like a half step better than a Rapala, dude. And the Rapala, the old floating Rapala smokes them, right? But dude, you can't cast it for dick, dude. And like, it's not much better. And I don't see a solution.
You got to do it on a spinning rod.
Wait, what's that?
You got to do it on a spinning rod. Like that's the only
like I throw it on the spin rod a lot.
Catches. Like it's still like
it does.
You know,
it'll wing.
Dude,
it'll wing on it.
Dude, I'm having to bomb. Like I'm staying way away from fish, dude. Like I got my active target set to $120, and like I will cast to my $120. Like I will, and if the bait doesn't allow me to do that, it's not a bait that I'm going to be throwing very often. So.
Yeah, with that silent, you might get 60 or you're going to get 110, depending on which way.
I'd love to hang out with you, bro. I can't. It must be that, bro. I'm sitting there going like this, and you're just like that. Beard grows.
You got to get a full extension, slightly softer rod. You know,
you're going to hear the whip crack all the way across. Like,
no, that's my re-range. Like that's the re-range. All right. Like,
that's funny.
Gosh. So like. You know, like Caleb, you're talking about unique color patterns, right? Like, when do you start diving into unique colors? Is it with like deeper diving crankbaits or chatterbaits, and maybe like when
I do it a lot on small body cranks, especially. Like I'll go crazy colors, you know, pinks. Frogs are a huge thing for me. Mikey knows, like blue, sherbet, bright, like weird yellow colors and stuff like that. It makes a huge difference late season. Just getting those extra bites. I don't know why. When it comes to big smallmouth, I've noticed that like I'll go to like a pink on my jerk bait a lot of times, and it's hard baits mostly is where I do a lot of my experimentation. When it comes to soft baits, I'm pretty generic on that, really. Even though I might use a color that's like, oh, this is only in Japan or whatever, it's still like it coincides with something. Like it's in the realm of possibility, right? It's when I get into the hard baits that I'm not afraid to go something really crazy. And then frogs, like I was saying.
Do you think they go after
markers on those though too? Like I'll have like
frogs or just hard baits?
On hard baits, like not frogs. Frogs are, but like, dude, you got a 6XD and green gizzard shad, and you're like, man, I need it to show up a little better. You take like a pink marker, one of them pink spike hit markers, and you run a line down the side, or you take a chartreuse and you got chartreuse green gizzard shad or whatever, you know. And then you take some alcohol, wipe it right off, you know. Like it's kind of
exactly. I like getting stuff like, I'm buddies with Nick Folks and stuff, so I get some stuff like weird custom painted. Like I had a year where I caught him really good on a custom, like a midnight black 10XD.
Really?
Got the fire out of him on the wedges on it. Yeah.
Huh.
So like,
I think like Norman
midnight black, like galaxy looking with a purple back.
Norman,
right? Like I've got some traps that are like baby blue, like eggshell.
Yes, that's sneaky.
That's like a baby blue craw, right?
That smashes. So it's thinking outside the box a little bit, but going back to a lot of it still to me is like I like the idea of going to silent and different style rattles and stuff. Like for us, rattle baits, like one of the big ones around here is like the Jackal TN 55s or whatever they're called. Dude, they're the loudest freaking rattle baits you've ever heard. And these fish that I've seen a million rattle baits on Chick will smash that. Or they'll smash a silent one, and they will not touch a one knocker.
Yeah, it's like extremes.
It's so weird, and it goes in phases. So it's like I keep going back to like everything is ledge fishing now. I don't care what time of the year it is. You got to have a bunch of stuff on deck, and you need to start cycling through it and figure out what they want that day / that hour, and roll with it. Every little fish is different. So having some options that you're confident in is super important.
See, this is where living in the South is much harder than the North because our fish are still pretty stupid. So you can kind of just have whatever you want.
It's the most amazing thing in the world.
That's what we come up and visit you, dude. We're like, we love
they're bass. Look at them.
My favorite days are the days that you go out and you're like, I'm going to catch about this rod and this bait, and I don't care. And then you go out and you catch like 40 of them. You're like, well, I need to figure out what else to do because I'm bored.
Learning a new technique is really difficult.
Exactly. You still get those magic days, but to me, it's about maximizing the days that are tougher, right?
Yeah.
Like if you do that, if you maximize your time on the water and you maximize the mediocre to really tough days, that's the difference between having, 3 trophy-sized fish at the end of the year versus like 7 trophy-sized fish, right? So it's like you gotta, no matter any time on the water needs to be good time on the water.
100%.
I like that. Real quick, what was that sherbet color? Like, can you describe what that
Yeah,
was?
what's a sherbet frog?
Spro makes one bronzite. It literally, so it's like a sherbet. I don't know if you
Is it
you
like
know
that
what
white and orange one?
We'll pull this up.
it's kind of a milky, orangey, pinkish, reddish color. Like that's sherbet.
Like
I'm gonna find it here. I'll pull it up.
Does it have a
My
pink
other
head?
favorite, like my personal favorite, is poison frog.
Poison.
But I've got another company that makes it, and I like their frog a lot better. I can't remember the name of it.
It's not on.
I need Jared to make it in the copper red frog. I really like that copper red frog. I know you like it too,
I like
man.
a brown frog.
Deal, dude.
Dude,
That
it's got a
frog is
great hookup ratio. It flips, so you get like the hooks in there. Yeah, dude,
It
you can walk.
walks freaking naughty, dude. Even
It's
on
got
like
it's got a weird spritz to it, like a
spits,
little
yeah.
mouth.
It's
It's got a spring. It's almost like a little shower blows or something.
yeah, it's a cool.
What frog is this?
The
No,
copper
don't
red
tell him.
dates.
Don't mustache. You find out for yourself. That's no. Next year we'll talk about it. All right, that's
Next year.
next year. You gotta have this
That's
back.
massive.
I love that you called it. You described it naughty. I'm gonna be using that from now on. There's your poison
He's
frog.
naughty.
Yeah.
It was
It's got a very
naughty.
blue bottom to it. Like I don't care about anything but the bottom. You see that blue on the back of it there? The bottom is that color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Blue and orange tail.
Late season when the
ugliest
mats have been
frog.
fished out and you've got those last few big fish and the mats are shrinking, going to those really bright colors. I was so ticked off the other day. I watched a Jacob Wheeler video and he was throwing that sherbet frog. I was like, yeah, dang it, somebody else knows how to do that crap.
I can't find this color to save my life, Caleb.
I don't know what the name of it is, but once you
Oh,
see it, you should
not
see it.
even
Like if
sure.
you look up sherbet ice cream and then look up the Spro colors, you're gonna immediately know which one I'm talking about.
There's orange juice.
Is it? It's not flamingo, is it?
Throw it up there. See,
Hold
Here,
on.
look, I got you.
It's got like
flamingo's a pink one, if I'm not
it
mistaken.
is.
I've
Yeah,
caught
it's
them on
like
that.
that.
Did
Like
this
a
deal?
bubblegum pink. No, that's not it. But I've caught them on that frog before.
Of course you have.
He's
No,
like
but it's
any
right
color
up- it's right up
whatsoever.
the same concept, right?
It's a spro frog.
Yeah.
You got these boys.
If you go to
scrambling.
Spro's website, there is a pile of frog colors.
There's
Holy
like a
cow!
billion color frogs, but
I still remember.
I do that
Alex
a lot,
got
like
that.
just outside the box colors, especially like everyone throws chartreuse, everyone throws red, but like going to some of those OG type pale orange colors, like laid on the front of your dash for the entire year,
Oh,
red
yeah.
crawl that turned into that color, like that's the deal. Eggshell blues, there's a few of them out there. Pink is a big deal for me when I'm cranking.
I'm gonna start ordering a crap ton of just ridiculously covered frogs. Just start playing around with this crap.
Seriously,
Yeah,
no
I've
kidding.
been-
Like now this is all matte fishing and stuff. Those are not my open water colors of choice, but when those mats are getting sparse and those fish can see through it and stuff, I feel like it makes a difference.
Something a little bit different for him.
Yeah.
Dig it.
I'm trying to find that
Makes sense.
frog.
And a lot of it's action too. We were talking about that earlier. You can be very unique. You can throw the same bait everyone's throwing, but if you think outside the box on the way that you're throwing it, Mikey was touching on that big time with the strolling techniques. And like, I do a whole lot with little hair jigs, so like similar to what you would do strolling, and just reeling that joker. Because my thought process behind that is exactly smallmouth fishing, right? Feather jigs up north. You reel that thing, and you can't reel perfectly with a spinning reel, and so that thing kind of swims through the water. And the little hair jig does the same deal. And if I can't get a fish, a lot of times you can hover that thing in place so long that you can pull a fish to it. And if they won't go, you can work it like a hair jig, like you would in the summertime, and they'll smack that thing.
Yep.
So there's all kinds of different things. Like that's always been my stick is don't ever get stuck on what you saw during, a Bassmaster rundown or like in a Bassmaster catalog or somebody's tip video that you respect. Like, don't ever get stuck on that. That's just a base point, and then you need to start to expand off of that.
Yeah, do not ever trust the top 10 baits that are on any website of a league.
You can trust that, but I'm saying that's just your starting point, right?
Yeah, I think
That's
it's
100% your starting point. Like, you got to be willing to try different things. Like, just because someone says it's the deal doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the deal always.
Yeah.
It's like methylate.
Oh, God.
Methylate's the deal always.
That is the deal.
Methylate crushes, dude. Like, I crushed up there in Michigan with it. I brought it up there, 2 years ago to Charlevoix and cracked a bunch of fish, throwing a floating worm just like we would down here. When they get up pre-spawn, they start cruising flats. They were cruising flats. I was like, I had some still in my bag from down in Tennessee, and I was like, they'll probably hit this. And if you could keep it away from the freaking pike,
oh yeah,
good ones. Because those pike were like, they'd see it all the way across the lake. They're like, oh yeah, just gone right over there. Yeah, it's just like if you're throwing, like you're down at the dam and you like throw a dang lipless crankbait. Like I swear, every drum within 6 miles, is like, oh, I'm on the way.
That rock in the head just gets going, right? They're like, I got that rattle weight.
They just beeline for you. But I don't know. That's just the way I try to think of things. It's like I like to experiment.
Yeah,
I feel like a lot of times you'll end up hitting on something, or what a lot of times you'll find out is on down the road, someone who's been smashing them and winning big tournaments. It comes out later that that's what they were doing. They were, working it in a way you're like, oh, cool. That's like I was working really good for me like 2 years ago when that guy was doing it, but he wasn't telling anybody yet. So like it's the only way I know to stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah, I dig that. Well, we have a couple more categories to hit off on here, but before we do, we have a little fun segment each show that's called our Amped Outdoors Electric Take, and so it's where we ask you guys a bold question. So this will be fun, but this one is obviously powered by the folks at Amped Outdoors, which is our team here at Serious Anglers' preferred choice of lithium batteries for boat, kayak, and any adventure, as freaky as they may be that Mikey wants to go on. Who knows what those might be? But
whatever, dude.
I had to.
Don't act all innocent over there.
I'm not innocent. I don't know why I get tagged. We got mustache up in the corner, the best bottom and bass fishing in the other one. Like, and I'm the one. I'm the problem. Really?
I get to rag on them every day, Mikey. I don't get to rag on you. I take the shot while I could. But I'm gonna defer this to both of you guys, so we want you both to answer. What do you think is the most underrated bait of all time, and then the most overrated bait of all time?
Wow, I like that.
That's big.
Underrated bait.
I'm very curious what this comes out to.
I don't know if I want to say this stuff.
That's crazy, dude. That's a tough one right there.
Well,
I mean, you can say if you don't want to leak the juice.
I'll bring this one up actually because it's super popular, but nobody knew like the full potential until we knew the full potential, and that's like a fluke, dude. Because I consider all these minnow baits flukes, and we were doing let's walk the fluke, it's great for schooling fish, and and we're putting it on the back of chatterbaits, but who knew that you could literally right now in Gunnersville, dude, and it won't last, but for the past 2 years, you could go out there with a 3 or a 5-inch fluke and fish 365 days of the year and catch them. There's no doubt. Now you'd have to put it on a ball head. You'd have to freaking twitch it sometimes, depending on whatever. But you could literally catch them, and you can't even do that with a stick bait, But 365 days of the year, you can catch them. So I would say maybe not right now. It's the most underrated bait, but in what do you call that? Foresight or aft sight? You know what I'm saying? When you look back, everything. Hindsight is king, dude. And
Heine.
totally freaking
Heine hindsight.
Yeah, Heine hindsight. Bailey, you should have pulled that one out, bro.
There, that's that guy right up there. Yeah.
Tiny hindsight. Bailey.
It points to the stash. Nice.
Yeah.
So what's
Caleb,
the most overrated bait then?
I don't know because I don't get to. That's like super clickbaity, Bailey. I don't like it. Like I like clickbait. I don't know because there's nothing really overrated. Everything's got its like little place in that. Now, like Joe freaking Angler at the boat ramp will like hype something up and make it overrated. You know, like oh my god, I smashed him. I can never live without this. And it's like, all right, cool, come back in a week. You know, like, but. I don't know. Because there's nothing really hyped right now. Like the minnow's the biggest deal, right? There's nothing that's
How
super
about underrated or overrated, just like colors? Because I think colors are a big thing for people, right?
Yeah, but I don't believe in that. I mean,
You know, you've always met like to me, like when I think of overrated, I think of like someone that's just like obsessed with green pump or June bug or something like that. They've got like they can't live without this one color. I'm like, no, bro. Like you can catch fish on any of these other things.
Mm-hmm.
You're just making Andy very depressed right now.
I'm gonna say underrated. I'm gonna say underrated. One of the biggest things that's underrated is like a black worm of some kind. Like it could be a trick worm, it could be a jig, but no one throws black in clear water anymore. Like it's apart from guys throwing feather jigs up north and stuff, but like that was everyone knows about methylate and bubblegum and like lime green and stuff for floating worms and like catching fish on bed and stuff like that. Like black is an amazing floating worm color. It's amazing around the spawn in clear water. It's a great color.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd hardly ever see just matte black. And that's what you want. Like, you want to like rub your shoe on it, like you want it to look matte black. But it's just super underrated. That's why I have hard baits painted that way. Because there's something about it.
Dang, jet black hard baits.
Yeah.
I dig it. Now you're making Andy very happy. Andy preaches this all the time.
I don't have any jet black jerk baits yet, but I want to try it just for kicks and giggles, especially when they'll eat, like, because I throw a black floating worm a lot. And I think that they would eat a jerk bait like that time of year that was black too.
Oh,
when they're in that weird cruising phase, when they really like eat a floating worm, they're like halfway locked on bed. Some of them are locked on, some of them are just cruising, and they'll eat that methylate worm or the black one. I feel like the black jerk bait would come in handy.
Yeah,
I catch them off bed on jerk bait all the time. Like it's an awesome bed fishing bait.
I want to say we saw that last year or 2 years ago with Will Davis when he won on. Was it Lay that he won on? I don't remember which event Will Davis Jr. won, but he was fishing on one on a bed with a black jerkbait.
It was a black jerkbait. I remember that. I remember him throwing a jerkbait, but I don't remember it being black.
I think it was almost jet black. It was some weird
bomber. I think it was a bomber, like it was a floating jerkbait.
Yeah, like a long day.
I could see that really crushing.
That's old school, yeah.
Because black devil horse is like huge, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And yellow devil horse, black devil horse, that kind of deal. There's something to it. And then like overrated, I'm just gonna go straight up like sexy shad, like hard baits of any kind. Remember sexy shad when that came out? Jesus,
KBD.
That's gonna be the title. Caleb says KBD was wrong all along.
Well, that's all work. The SEO on that is perfect. Fire.
Yeah.
You know,
those actually, are gonna be my. I don't know, like you were saying, Mikey. Like every type of bait, I feel like has its place, and I can't remember one that was just like a complete dud that everyone loved.
Well, you know what's underrated?
Banjo minnow love. Come on,
the Ned's fucking underrated, dude. Like everybody, like sales are down on the Ned, and like I'm throwing that thing like on forward facing and dropping to fish. I know you guys up north are doing that with smallmouth still, but like down south, like other than maybe like smallmouth spawn or like spots or something, like nobody's into a Ned. You put up a Ned video on YouTube, dude, it craps the bed. Like it's.
Have you strolled with one yet?
What's that?
Have you strolled with a Ned yet?
Yeah, he kills it.
Smashes.
Yeah.
Smashes. Holy
It does this little spinny doodle thing when you set it up right.
Yeah.
Like, and when you drop to him, even like largemouth, dude, it doesn't have to be spots. Like, it's naughty. But like, if I were to put that video up, it would get 0 to negative views, dude. Like, it's not a popular thing right now.
A mushroom head, like if you reel one, it does what we were talking about, like different heads do. And that's why, like, a lot of the dudes I know, like in Michigan, you talk about Bend, they tie their feather jigs on a Ned head because when you're reeling it, it's got a motion to it.
Really?
It's resistant to the water. So when you stroll with a Ned head, like I even put minnows on it sometimes.
Yeah.
And I'll stroll with the Ned head because it'll like, it just doesn't come through the water really well. It's got a ton of resistance. So it causes it to do its own thing. So you can literally just like, you don't even have
like
to do
the stupid
anything.
one.
No twitching, no nothing. You just reel.
Yeah, Bass looks up and goes, "Oh, that's a stupid one. I could eat that."
Yeah. Oh my God, we got to get that one out of the gene pool.
That's amazing.
That works really good though.
Yeah, heck yeah.
As much as I despise a Ned head. I think it's just because I'm a shaky head guy. I love a shaky head.
I hate shaky heads.
See, I love it, man. I love shaky.
Yeah, Mikey, you've been throwing that a while. Like you've been throwing that big Nichols one on your videos for years.
Bro, I kill it on that.
Well, the biggest one, I caught that giant one in Florida with you on that stupid Ned head.
Yeah, I made you fish it because we were catching it.
Yeah. It was super fun.
I've taken it to another level. We got all these lakes that have that tannic water down here, and they'll have like a pad line or a maiden king like line, and then it's like mid depth, like crappy, like mid shallow depth, like 5 to 8, like 4 to 6. And dude, I've been scoping fish outside the grass line in like 4 to 6, 4 to 8, dropping that net on them. They're just floating around out there like a foot or two under the surface outside the grass line, dude. So like all these guys are fishing the pads, they're pitching to the stalks, they're, whatever, fishing inside the grass. And you get on the outside, and you got to have the right day. It can't be, ripping 45 miles an hour. But, dude, you start panning around and you get on – there's, like, limestone and hard bottom areas down here. You get on one of those, and you start panning around, and you'll be like, wow, there's 2 fish. It's probably, like – I think it's, like, what your smallmouth look like a lot. They're, like, literally a foot or two under the water floating in, like, 5, 6, maybe 7 feet of water. And you dunk that Ned, like, right, depending on clarity, either, like, right in front of them or a foot or two away. And, like, I don't know, 3 out of 10 are like, hey, what's that? I want to eat it. Let me go down. And, dude, they go down, and you go, and they go, and it's freaking dumb, dude. Like, it's pretty dumb.
I like it when they're
sound
doing
effects.
that. Like,
The manner. We just need a Mikey Ball soundboard.
It's awesome.
So recording them. I'll sell them on Etsy. Maybe I can make some money, actually.
Yeah. I'll clip them for you. We'll put it on the soundboard here.
We'll collaborate, make a few dollars, dude.
Yeah.
I love it.
Just selling some Mikey soundboards. It's perfect.
Sound effects. I like it.
So another thought here, just as we get into profile stuff, we had Wheeler on recently talking profiles with forward-facing stuff and our jig head minnow deal. But I think as we get into different iterations of baits and we're thinking through like pressured fish, right, and profiles come into play, maybe more so or different than length. What is your take on profiles, when to maybe go with that thicker profile and those types of situations?
We seriously talking about girth versus length, mustache? Like, come on, dude.
I said profiles. You said girth.
Get out there like that. Like, come on. Unbelievable, dude.
We're taking a poll. Girth versus length. Where do we
He's like threading the needle, and you can see it in your face as you're like talking. You're like, I'm going down a rabbit hole right here.
Like, what I should have put on these notes is I should have just got it right out of the hat. Girth versus length, rather than being like, I'm trying not to go that way, and that's of course where it is.
We are treading on Bass and Brews territory right now.
So what is it, Mikey?
You gotta pump
What's
the
more
brakes,
important,
dude.
girth or
You gotta
length?
pump the brakes.
I feel like for me, when I just talking, let's just say minnows right now, okay? like the profile of like a cast echo, very shad-like, very like medium on the top, and it's like a triangle, right? Like a teardrop, thin on the bottom, very shad profile. It keels out a certain way in the water, right? Like you throw that one too, Mikey. I think you throw that cast echo a lot. Whereas like a spunk shad is a very like cylindrical bait. It's not like a flat sided like the Crush City. What the heck is that thing called?
The Crush City
Jacob's bait. What's it called?
Not the Mooch Minnow. It's the other one.
Are
What
we
do you
serious?
think of that?
They're
I
sold
don't
out
think
everywhere, and none of us can remember them. Anyway, the Crush
Freeloader,
City
freeloader.
Jacob Wheeler minnow. What?
the
the
freeloader.
freeloader.
Yeah, freeloader.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, so that one's like flat sided. Like the spunk shad shines for me a lot of times because it does just chill in the water, right? Like it's easy to hover a bait that's round like that. And to me, it's like the profile is different. It's bulky no matter which way the fish is looking at it. If that makes sense, I don't know. Like
It's got good
it
girth.
makes a difference in the way the bait reacts in the water.
Huge girth, huge.
Huge. Okay.
I'm not doing this.
Big
It's
minnow,
not my fault.
strong minnow,
You guys are
ears
taking-
rolling down the side.
It's not my fault.
Can we take a second? I want to say Rapple did an amazing job with the Crush City baits, but all too often, if you say Crush City too fast, you end up saying Crush Shitty. They didn't. I don't think they thought that fully through. That you keep saying Crush City. Like I know Deacon said it when he said it fast. It's Crush City.
I could see myself doing that.
Yeah.
I really like. So I really like the Crush City bait.
See?
Like I don't know. Like the like they're half elastic, right?
Some of them are
They're very durable.
Are,
is what I'm getting at. They're like I really like. I think it's called the Mayor. Their little swim bait. I really like that thing because you can get so many fish out of it. And I've been experimenting that versus like a 3.3 or a 2.8 Kitech, and we've been getting like the same amount of bites with it. So to me, it's really nice to have a bait that I don't have to change out every 3 fish. You know.
You need to try the net bait Hex Tech one. I think it's like the Blipman, or no, it's not the Blipman. Yeah, but the one with the boot tail on it though.
I got one of those too.
And dude, it's super thin, but it's kind of naughty. And for how like soft it is and how little plastic, it's really durable, dude. I've been putting it on my A-rig.
That one, Mikey.
That one, yeah. That one's pretty cool.
For me, profile a lot has to do with action. That
it has a square boot,
tiny little boot. Yeah,
it's a lot of shapes, Mikey.
We're gonna get naughty trending. Like when people say that's sick, like we're gonna start getting that's naughty trending. Like
we've had that trending for years. Me and Caleb just go back.
That's a great design on the boot right there. I like that.
It's a good boot.
Reminds me of the Has-Dog shad.
Well, all right. So to start to wrap this show up in regards to the categories we were talking about, action. I think this one we haven't really hit on fully yet. But when we're talking about action, there's a difference when you look at like soft plastics, like when we flip. And, it's a beaver bait or a creature bait that has a bunch of appendages. They have 2 completely different falls, 2 different profiles, and obviously the action of them when we do throw them. That like with a flat side versus a square bill. Completely different action, tight versus wide. I'm kind of curious your guys' rule of thumb when it comes to something like that. Like, is it a water temp range or something different that you guys go and you go, I'm going to go down this bank and flip a beaver bait versus some sort of creature bait, or if I'm going to go throw a frit side versus a strike king square bill. Like, what dictates action for you guys? And
for me, if you're twerking them right, they're all heavy action, right? Like, no, like
what? What are we going with this?
All Mikey's rods are heavy action when he's on plastic.
That's
right?
crap. That's not true.
Go big or go home, boys.
Yeah. When we're talking action, like on a bait, cold water, I like something that's got a tight action, right? Like whether it's my minnow, like I'm not tying a loop knot on my minnow. I'm not doing that, on the slack line. That's when the colder it is, the more I'm going to divert something that I'm literally just reeling, where it's like a Ned head with a little minnow or a small hair jig or something like that. So
Okay.
I tried to mute that based on what's going on in the water. I get more aggressive as the water's warmer. But there's stuff that's outside the norm, right? Like wigglewort's one of my favorite small body cranks in super cold water, and that thing's like, it's crazy, like it's back and forth. So there's definitely things that it's just there's things that are outside what would conventionally talk about being like the right way to do something. Like we know now, like even when there's ice on the water, like some of the most aggressive fish that you see on live scope are in super cold water, right? Like you'll be working a rig over top of a fish that's like 4 foot down and 25 foot, and that one's not interested. And the one that's like in 18 foot down there, it's like boom, and just crushes that thing. So I don't know. It's like you just got to keep them honest. The more I see the forward facing and work a bait on there, it's like it opens your eyes to like it's more about we've gotten to this phase where it's more about looking at that and being able to dictate what that fish's personality is and what they want to see.
Yeah.
Based on the way that they're acting, kind of like we used to do, like with a bed fish or when I was fishing a glide bait. That was super important to look at the way, like the attitude of the fish or personality of the fish, and then determine how I was going to make that fish react. Well, now we're doing that 20 foot of water, 5 foot of water. It doesn't matter. And so the people that are dialing that aspect in, fish temperament, personality, and and just whether they're catchable or not, or catchable in the time that you need them to be catchable, those are the guys that are winning tournaments. Those are your bank shaws. Those are your young kids. And it's because it's like, I keep telling people like live scope, they get locked into it and they're like, why can't I catch fish on there? It's like, because you're just sitting there on those same fish. Like you got to think of live scope as like cold call sales. You just keep dialing until you get one to bite, right?
One
Like
out of 100, maybe.
You got to cover water. You got to present it to as many fish as possible until you can learn right away when you see that fish if it's something that you need to be throwing at or not.
I dig
Love it.
Mikey, what's your take on that?
So I think Caleb's 100% right. I've sort of gotten to a point where with Caleb, what he's talking about with like, it's kind of an arsenal for me, right? Like, so I have a different arsenal for different like times of the year, different water temperatures, things along those lines. So I've kind of just dialed it into just baits that I like. A lot of them have more subtle action 90% of the time, especially with cold water and that. Exceptions being like first fish out on ledges and that. Like you're either fishing like not at all, or you're freaking moving a bait and grind it like total reaction, right? So I don't know what there isn't a straight answer because Caleb highlighted the best thing. Every rule that we had has been broken. And if you spend enough time staring at forward facing, dude, you'll literally watch all these rules that you personally have get freaking broken. Like I watch it continually. Like what Caleb highlighted the best thing is like literally, dude, the water's like 45 degrees, 44 degrees. And you're like, can I inch this any slower? And then, dude, a fish from a bottom of a ditch, dude, not a spot, a freaking largemouth, comes 12 to 15 foot up and like cuts in front of the fish that you're fishing and eats the bait. So like there are no rules. So what I've just tried to dial in is I have these baits that I like. Maybe they're cool baits, maybe they're popular, they're working for other people. I get an arsenal together and like I just use that arsenal to kind of cover my fish because it's a statistics game, right? Dude, you're trying to pull a chick from a bar. Like, how many different like whips do I have? How many pickup lines? How many plays, dude? And I'm just rotating through, just trying to, hey, maybe this one's going to work a little bit better. She seems like she, gets into some like naughty talk or something like that. So that's what I'm that was for you, Bailey. But I got confidence in it's kind of like a variety arsenal, Like I said, I had a Sakamata, a 7-inch Sakamata, a glide, and a freaking 3-inch minnow and a 3-inch Kitech tied on. So like I got 100% confidence I can catch a 9-pounder on every single one of those baits, but they all fit a different like presentation category. So I'm kind of covering that, and I might fail on X fish. I might pick the wrong one on Y fish, but Z fish hangs around for a minute. I throw the Kitech to it. I get no reaction, so I pick up the minnow, and instead of swimming it, I start burning that freaking minnow. Or maybe I pick up that jerk bait and it's a neutral fish. It didn't do anything when the minnow went by. I have to make that fish react. So I want something more erratic, but like subtle, right? So I pick up that 110 and freaking, I'm making him react. I'm picking up a cadence. Maybe I have to reel it. So a lot of it is understanding more like what the bait does and not picking the bait for what it does, but what you can do with it. I guess it's about what it does, but like how it fishes, like what are the potentials and what can I do with it? I found more and more too that I'm using baits that I can do 2 or 3 different things with. The jerk bait's a perfect example. I can reel it, I can freaking kill it and slow pop it. That chatterbait mini, dude, I can fish that in 2 foot of water and I can fish it in 10 foot of water if I'm slow rolling it. Like it's super versatile, dude. And like I'm trying to get baits together. Obviously every lake, every season has its play, but I'm trying to sort of like always have an arsenal of baits that I can do a million different things with like 7 rods, right? And that's really helped me is those baits having multi-function. A great example, and this is like a total self-plug, I built this jig with Gambler called the Live Rocker. So it's literally a flat-headed jig, dude, that has a fin on it. And like you can literally net fish this thing, or you can fish it like a freaking minnow, dude. Or you can reel it and it actually acts like a scrounger where it causes like the fluke tail to shake. So I can literally do 3 different things with it. And it's 1 3/16 ounce jig that like everybody else would have like an owner freaking roller ball tied on for. But like I can do all those things. I can drop the fish, I can swim it, I can freaking minnow dangle. And like that's what's been my focus is having a bait that I can do a lot with, but that fits into some of the categories we're talking about. More subtle action, silent action, or like more vibration, depending on what I do with it though, versus just what the bait brings to the table when I cast it and reel it. If that makes sense. I know it's kind of convoluted.
Yeah.
It's confidence, yeah. Like
Yeah,
I get that completely. It's like you have an arsenal of tools that you know how to use.
Yeah.
Right. Like if you're a guy that does plumbing, you're not going to go into an electrician's truck and try to use his tools to do your job. Right.
Yeah.
It's about like when it comes down to actually fishing and catching fish and like making the most out of your day on the water, falling back on versatility and confidence is huge.
Yeah, because the other thing, guys, that I've noticed, Gunnersville, and I'm learning, I'm not good up there, but like, and Caleb sees it on Chick, like, they get beat up, right? Especially this past year, bro. Usually, come like October, I kind of got that lake to myself. Everybody goes deer hunting, dude. It was so good out there. Everybody was out. Boat ramp is full, dude. It was like COVID. The people are there every freaking week, all the way through December. So for us, a lot of times on some of these southern lakes, it's not even so much about the action anymore or like the behavior of the bait. And this is going to sound super duper cliche, but it's reality. And you know what, Caleb? I think you told me this. If it's new, I'm going to throw it. Because, dude, whether it's a tight action, whether it's a freaking wide wobble, whether it darts up and jumps down and flies out of the water and then it kisses your face. Like, I don't care. It's different and it's going to work for freaking like 6 months to a year, if it actually works. A lot of times it's crap and it doesn't work. But, dude, if it's new, I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to slang it. Not because it has the right action for the watercolor, the right action for the water temperature, just simply because it's different. We're in such a 24-hour like media cycle and such a fast exchange rate when it comes to techniques and things like that. Like literally at this point, the litmus test is if it's new, it might actually work for a bit. And then it's going to go into the box like everything else does. And that's really the game I've been playing. It's so funny how like YouTube is usually kind of lame, right? Where it's always like all this hype video on new stuff and that. But the reality has sort of come to roost, dude, where new stuff freaking matters. Like I'm not trying to be cliche or like clickbaity or anything. Like if you're not throwing something new, you're missing out on bites. Not because it's special, not because it's the greatest thing in the world, just because it's different.
Yeah, special right now.
Yeah, that's it. It's hot. Ride the train and then get off the train and change it up when it freaking.
And some things make it into your lineup going down the road, and some things just don't.
Yeah,
like you're gonna have a whole graveyard of stuff that's like he said, it's just good for a little while, but thinking outside the box, JDM stuff, new domestic
the
stuff.
Evo
And then
tungsten.
we're talking about that too, like the way we work a bait, right? Work
Yeah.
it in a different way than everybody's working it.
Yeah.
I mean, that strolling came on because what we were talking about earlier, it's a different application for a fluke, right? And so it's the small differences. It's a bait that's been in our boxes since I was a little kid, right? Like I've always thrown a fluke. And because somebody decided to throw it on a ball head, I even used to throw a fluke on a shaky head, and I would throw it like a ball head, shaky head, but I would never stroll it. I would throw it on shallow fish that were on shell beds. Like after they would stop biting a trap or a hard bait in the spring, I would just throw that in there and just kill it and just like let it chill there. Like I was fishing a Ned rig. That's even before Ned rigs. I caught a ton of fish doing that, but never did it cross my mind to stroll that thing. And so that just always gets me thinking. I'm like, your one little cadence or one thing that you capture in your brain, like you actually put two and two together, clicks from being the next strolling. You know what I mean? So it's like you always got to be.
Insane.
Now we have
like
dice.
you were talking about, like this whole, it's an arms race, right? Like between people and fish, like it's it's ramping up.
Yeah.
And so, and I get guys all the time. They're like, "Oh, dude, I didn't catch them worth a dang this year." I'm like, you can't just expect to do the same stuff. You can't expect like the one technique to be good for 5 years. It's not like that anymore. Like you got to be at the cutting edge if you can at all times in order to stay ahead of whatever you want to call it, evolutionary arms race, whatever you want to call it. That's how fish learn. They learn generationally.
Yeah.
And people learn at a faster and faster rate now. So we're educating fish faster and faster. And so it's just whatever you want to call it. Boom. Insert scientific term. But,
You know what I'm
that
looking for?
inspires me. That inspires me to experiment more. I mean, I experiment plenty, but like that is a really good way to wrap it up. Like, man, experiment, and find, because like you said, you're one little change from like an completely new unlocked thing,
Or you just go back 10 years.
That's why
you're throwing 10 years ago, dude, and it works again.
That's what I was about to say.
Going retro is another thing.
Just wait for it.
Hey, the mustache came back around, right? Like this is the same.
Bro, that's it, dude. It's the cycle of the mustache. Fishing is mustache.
Plum red and blue flake, motor oil. It's all coming back, baby.
I mean, I had a really good year a couple years back fishing a grub. Like nobody fishes a grub anymore.
Yeah,
crushed him on a grub, and then I had a year. This has been probably 5 years ago, but I had a year I crushed him on a jitterbug. I just pulled it out because I was like, you know what? I haven't thrown one of these since I was a
Chris
kid.
Grow on St. Clair last year.
Just smoked him on jitterbug. Like anywhere I went, I caught him really good. And I think that's a huge thing too, is like you can't just, there's those things that went in the box that were good for a little while and they went away. Don't be afraid to like 10 years, 15 years later, like pull that thing out again and just see.
That's
sometimes you'll be surprised. Like
the
very
bomber
happily.
fat free shad will be back soon too, and like citrus shad. Oh yeah.
I still like probably the bait to me that like I used to just smash them on was a tube, right? Like smallmouth, largemouth, and I still have such a struggle picking it up now, and I have boxes and boxes and boxes of tubes, and it's like I need to pick that thing back up. Like clearly it works. It still
no one throws it here. Yeah, I know. I love throwing the tube. Like I love throwing the shad pattern tube. You talk about like that was probably the closest thing that I ever did to strolling or like an off the bottom technique with a bait like that was cracking a tube. Like I learned about cracking a tube, and so I started doing that with the shad pattern tube on ledges and stuff. Holy crap! And like underneath of schooling fish, dude. It smashes, and like I don't even remember the last time I saw somebody with a tube on their deck on Tennessee River.
Yeah, unless you're in the north.
Yeah, you don't even see them up here that much.
Yeah, you don't see them in smallmouth country. That's what's crazy.
Yeah.
Shoot fire, man.
Well, that message, Mikey, is perfect, especially like to cap some stuff off, which is another reason why we always stress to people, like whether you're on Omni or any other online tackle shop, if there's a section called new arrivals to refresh that shit every single day, because you never know when you could be early on the scoop.
Yeah, exactly.
It's so good. But yeah, there's a lot of different, obviously, categories we walk through in this show of bait selection and just I think you said it perfectly, Mikey, of baits that you can use for their usage, but also how you can then manipulate it yourself to how you want that bait to work.
Make it your own.
Yeah. So it's great. And there's obviously, I think this show is kind of on the near edge of our not so serious shows, which is basically just debauchery, but also there was a lot of freaking juice dropped by you guys today. So as always,
Good
we
mix.
appreciate the hell out of both of you guys.
Thank you, gentlemen.
You guys are always bringing the heat and
Absolutely.
in both entertainment and in education. So,
Entertain, educate.
Where are we at on the professionalism scale?
No.
we're like
Three.
right on the border.
We're like 40, 60. Yeah, 40%.
We lost it, I think, when Deacon said he likes to experiment.
You know what? The next time you guys have me on, I'm wearing a suit. We're gonna bump this up a little bit. We'll still be filthy,
Dude,
but
wear a smoking jacket like what's his name? Bass After Dark. You gotta wear the purple smoking jacket or whatever.
No, I'll wear no shirt under my suit, dude. I'll forget. That'll be
no shirt, but you have a
that only
tie
works
on
if you
anyways.
got some good hair though.
That's good, dude.
You're gonna have to grow it out a little bit.
Yeah, that's true. I don't have
Prince
the
is
testosterone
really cool.
levels like you guys to do that, so I think I'm SOL.
You have to start shooting up between now and the next show.
I bet you mustache is like bushy, bro. I bet he like takes his shirt off and it just goes like it explodes out, you know? Like, hey, what do you got? It's like nothing. I got nothing on you, bro. Like,
Have a chest bush. Unbelievable.
There we go.
extra insulation value on those cold days.
Yeah, we need it up here this winter, all right? Like,
No kidding.
Oh, that's hilarious. Well, fellas, as always, appreciate the hell out of you guys, and another great show. But is there anything before we cap that the folks need to know about going forward? Anything up in the future, trips you guys got coming up?
dude, throw me some subs because I got a bad feeling YouTube's gonna take away my 100K. So friggin' total self promotion, dude. Friggin' sub the channel so they don't take away my plaque and drop below 100K. I want that damn plaque.
Mikey can only afford the jacket. He needs to be able to afford the shirt under the jacket. So
it is 100% true, dude. Holy crap! And actually, I'll plug this guy right here. You know, if you Caleb was nice enough to take me out live shad fishing, and I think have you guys gone with him?
Bailey has.
If you're looking for the most stupendous, relaxing, old school ass fishing experience where you catch absolute giants, go get a live bait trip with him. It's the most. I had the most fun. Like Caleb's a good dude. He's fun to hang out with. Whatever. Like not whatever, but like it's fun chilling. But like, dude, me and him sat there and drank Coke Zeros and just talked about life and literally hooked like monster Chickamauga bass, dude, on little spinning rods. I watched my line go like chasing. He's like, "Hey, I think you got one." And I'm like, "You know what, Caleb? I think I do." And I just reeled down and went like that. And, dude, I had more fun that day than I've had fishing in a quick minute. So if you were looking for the trip of a lifetime with a shot at a giant, plus it'll just be like totally fun and totally different, go fishing with him.
All right, folks, that is gonna do it. We're keeping it in there, baby. We're just keeping it flowing. It is what it is. It is 9 p.m. here. All right. But hopefully you guys enjoyed that episode. It's perfectly on theme with how the show occurred, if you will, with Caleb and Mikey. Always a good time. Always are, as promised, entertainingly educational. But boys, a lot of juice dropped. We're talking about the whole selection of baits.
Yeah, I wish Caleb wouldn't have said black baits because that just like wrenched at me. I'm like, no, stop. Like, don't talk about
you say that, but you've talked about it on shows before too. Yeah.
I know. I mean, but I can talk about it. People are not listening to me. People are going to listen to Caleb. All right.
There you go. Fair point.
So it's like,
it's very true.
My theories have been proven. Now everyone's going to start throwing black, and now I got to find a new fun color to throw.
Okay, Andy, we know you have your 342 different Senko colors of half purple, half green with
4
orange and yellow flake.
Senko colors. All right, 4.
Oh, bull crap. We're going to prove that. Yeah. But yeah, no, I think a great summary of today's show was Mikey's quote of buy baits for what you can do with them, not what they're intended to do. I might have butchered exactly what he meant by that, like how he said it, but like,
yeah, I mean, it's basically like manipulate the actions and do different things, experiment, right? Caleb had the same kind of message there. So mega takeaway is, especially with forward facing sonar and our ability to now see how fish react, or even when you are shallow and can see how fish react, like do things different. It's going to get you more bites. And I thought that was a really, really important point.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, great show. As always, guys, everything that was discussed in today's show, I think for the most part, everything was available at Omnia Fishing. You guys can use code Series 10, save 10% off your orders. And obviously, you get even more than that if you're an Omnia Pro member, which we have codes to that too down below. But as always, folks, fellas, I think wraps up today's show. But folks, appreciate y'all. If you're watching on YouTube, like, subscribe. And if you're listening on MP3, please leave us a rating and review. Some fun shows coming up. We got Classic coming up in a couple weeks. Appreciate y'all as always. We'll see you on the next one.